Hi again. Kenneth Latourette, A History of Christianity, in the chapter The Course in Western Europe, page 342. He's been dealing with the good and the bad in the medieval church around the year 700 to 1000. Now he talks about the spread of Christianity in the West, which, as we've already anticipated in the discussion of Gregory the Great, is there's always the risk of anarchy in this period because of the breakdown of the Roman Empire and the invasions of lots of tribes who are not yet Christian or are becoming Christian. So, of course, that has all kinds of wheat and weeds implications, namely that there's good and bad. In the conversion of these tribes, there is a lot of leftovers. He deals with that here. One of the striking features of these centuries of disorder in Western Europe is the fashion in which, in spite of the near anarchy, Christianity continued to spread. While many factors contributed to this expansion, it would not have been except for the inner vitality of the faith. In Italy, Spain, and Gaul, the native pagan cults which survived at the end of the 5th century disappeared, and those imported by the invaders, except for Islam, were replaced by Christianity. More serious than overt paganism were the sag in morals and the increase in superstition of those who bore the Christian name. In Gaul, the later Merovingians were a sorry lot, weak and vicious. Under them, the quality of living of laity and clergy deteriorated. A gleam in the glowing darkness, or growing darkness, issued from Ireland. The Irish peregrini, that is, wanderers, who came to the Frankish domains, were distressed by the low level of morals which they found among professing Christians, and struggled manfully to raise it, and to win to the faith such openly avowed heathen as remained. They encouraged the laity to come to them, to confess their sins, and as a means of discipline worked out penitentials with penances prescribed for specific sins. The most famous of the Irish missionaries in the Frankish domains was Columban. He was a contemporary of Gregory the Great, perhaps born in the same year. Handsome, full-blooded, attracted by and attracted to the opposite sex, as a youth, against his mother's tears, he entered the monastic life. From the famous monastic community of Bangor, in what is now County Down, he led a band of 12 across the sea and preached in the Merovingian realms a more earnest faith in living. In the Vosges Mountains, he founded monasteries, which attracted many, and to which he gave a more austere rule than that of Benedict. Eventually, he aroused the ire of the Merovingian rulers, partly because of his frank speaking against the king's habit of taking concubines, and perhaps because of his unwillingness to submit to the bishops of the Frankish realm on the date for the celebration of Easter. To avoid deportation, he left the Frankish domains and resumed his wanderings. These took him to a monastic community in the mountains between Milan and Genoa, and there he died, probably in 615. Monasteries which followed his rule multiplied in the lands of the Franks. The Irish peregrini were not an unalloyed asset to the religious life of the continent. Unaccustomed to the diocesan form of church organization which they found there, they tended to disregard it. Their bishops wandered about as they pleased, ordaining whom they would. Their monasteries were reluctant or entirely unwilling to accord jurisdiction to the diocesan bishops. Some of the peregrini were accused of holding and teaching erratic and heretical doctrines. Yet in the main, the Irish made important contributions through their missionary labors among Christians and non-Christians. One of the most striking and important territorial gains of Christianity during this period, both in its immediate and its long-term results, was the conversion of the pagan peoples of the island of Great Britain. We have noted that Britain was part of the Roman Empire, and that before the end of the 5th century, the large majority of the population, who had conformed to Latin culture, had also accepted the Christian faith. It was in this Christian Britain that Patrick had been reared, and from it that he went as a missionary to Ireland. However, not all the population of the island had adopted the Christian name. North of the Roman limes in the later Scotland were Limes, by the way, spelled Limes. In the later Scotland were areas which had not been won to the faith and perhaps had not even been touched by it. Moreover, and more significantly, Germanic peoples, mainly Angles and Saxons, all of them pagans, had settled in the eastern portions of the island and had been formed into a number of petty kingdoms. The descendants of the Roman provincials, Christians, had moved to the western parts of the island, or to Brittany, or had been killed off. In the 6th and 7th centuries, within the span of approximately 100 years, the conversion of these Germanic settlers, the English, as we had best call them, was accomplished. The British Christians in the west of the island had little or no part. Presumably their clergy were not concerned to give the gospel to these invaders and chronic enemies. The missionaries were from two sources, Ireland and Rome. Both began their labors late in the 6th century. These gain added significance from the fact that in the 7th and 8th centuries, English missionaries had a large share in the conversion of Germany and in the improvement of the Christianity of the Carolingian realms, and that in recent centuries, British Christianity, mainly that of England and Scotland, has been carried to much of the world. Put in a link to Walter Rauschenbusch on this period of the monastics, and also to the Rauschenbusch playlist. I learned an awful lot from his book, Christianity and the Social Crisis. I think I wrote 3 pages of notes in the back, ran out of space. Rauschenbusch, a liberal Baptist of about 120 years ago, was more or less the father of the social gospel, but don't hold that against him, because the book is quite remarkable for its assessment of Christian history, the good and the bad, the wheat and the weeds, growing together. See you next time.